There are moments when the world becomes so loud that silence starts sounding unfamiliar, and yet this message arrives from that forgotten place where your spirit still waits patiently beneath unfinished conversations, sleepless nights, and the weight of pretending that everything feels normal. Something invisible has been walking beside you through crowded rooms and empty evenings, not demanding attention, only waiting for the moment your heart became still enough to notice. The strange part about exhaustion is that it rarely announces itself with drama, because it slowly settles into your routines until carrying heavy things feels ordinary and surviving another day feels like success enough. You have carried expectations that never belonged to you, memories that still echo inside quiet moments, and responsibilities stacked so high that you almost forgot the sound of your own inner voice. There was a version of you that once moved through life without calculating every risk, without preparing for disappointment before joy had a chance to arrive, without apologizing for existing too loudly or too softly. That version never disappeared, because hidden things are not always lost, and forgotten pieces of the soul often wait in silence rather than leaving forever. The night teaches something daylight cannot explain, because darkness removes distractions and leaves only truth standing in the center of the room. What remains after everything unnecessary fades away often reveals what was strongest all along. Type Amen if this message found you at the right moment. A quiet shift has been happening beneath the surface for longer than you realized, unfolding in small unnoticed ways through moments that looked ordinary from the outside. Growth rarely arrives wearing celebration clothes, because most transformations first appear disguised as discomfort, distance, and seasons that seem unfair while they are happening. My beloved child, there have been days when your strength looked nothing like confidence and everything like continuing despite uncertainty. The world often celebrates visible victories while ignoring invisible battles, yet the quiet decision to keep moving forward deserves its own kind of honor. You learned how to survive storms that nobody else noticed because some struggles happen behind smiles, inside routines, and underneath polite conversations. There were mornings when simply beginning again required more courage than anyone around you could understand. The heart becomes tired in ways the body cannot explain, especially after giving energy to places that returned emptiness and offering kindness where understanding never arrived. Even so, something inside you refused to disappear completely. Comment 333 if you are still standing after difficult seasons. There is a strange loneliness that appears when people surround you but fail to truly see you, and there is another kind of loneliness that arrives when you stop recognizing yourself. Both leave quiet marks that others rarely notice, yet both also create space for deeper understanding to eventually grow. You spent so much time adapting yourself to fit expectations that authenticity started feeling unfamiliar, like revisiting a childhood home after many years away. The soul remembers itself slowly, one honest moment at a time, through tiny acts of returning rather than dramatic awakenings. Archangel Michael says that not every delay was punishment and not every closed door was rejection. Some endings quietly protected parts of your future that your present emotions could not yet understand. There are chapters you survived that would have broken older versions of yourself, and although scars remain, they also became evidence that pain moved through you without permanently owning you. Survival transformed into wisdom in ways too subtle to notice while it was happening. Type light if you are choosing growth over bitterness. Some people think healing arrives like sunlight pouring suddenly through open windows, but often it arrives more quietly. Through resting without guilt, speaking kindly to yourself for once, and allowing unfinished emotions to exist without rushing them away. Gentle things change lives more often than dramatic moments do. The version of success you inherited from others may never have belonged to you in the first place. Chasing definitions created by strangers can leave a person standing inside achievements that still feel empty. Your spirit has been asking for room to breathe, not more pressure, not more comparison, not more reasons to feel behind. Rest is not weakness disguised in softer language, because exhausted hearts cannot hear their own wisdom clearly. My beloved child, what you call weakness has often been sensitivity carrying too much responsibility for too long. The ability to feel deeply inside a hard world remains strength, even when it becomes heavy. Comment peace if you are learning to slow down without guilt. Some wounds never came from dramatic betrayals but from repeated moments of being overlooked, underestimated, interrupted, dismissed, or expected to carry everything quietly. Small cuts repeated long enough can convince a person they deserve less than they do. You have outgrown places that once felt permanent, and growth creates strange grief because leaving old identities behind can hurt even when necessary. Becoming someone new requires saying goodbye to versions of yourself that once kept you safe. Archangel Michael says the path ahead does not require perfection before movement. Waiting until you feel completely ready often becomes another way fear quietly delays your life. There is wisdom inside your exhaustion because it revealed what can no longer continue unchanged. The things draining your spirit have already introduced themselves many times. Type forward if you refuse to stay stuck in old cycles. Life sometimes becomes a collection of postponed happiness, where joy keeps getting delayed until work finishes, responsibilities decrease, wounds disappear, or circumstances improve. Too many people accidentally spend years preparing for life while forgetting to live it. You deserve moments that are not earned through suffering first. You deserve laughter that does not immediately trigger guilt and peace that does not require explanation. There are places within you still waiting to create, dream, explore, trust, and begin again. Those places never disappeared during difficult seasons because they simply became quieter while survival demanded more attention. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks. Comment 111 if you are ready for a new chapter. The world teaches speed while the soul often prefers rhythm. Constant urgency can disconnect you from the quiet intelligence already living inside you. You have probably mistaken survival instincts for personality traits more times than you realize. Hypervigilance looked like responsibility, people-pleasing looked like kindness, and self-sacrifice looked like love until exhaustion exposed the difference. There is freedom hidden inside disappointing others when necessary. Boundaries feel uncomfortable mostly because they introduce unfamiliar peace. My beloved child, protecting your energy is not selfish language wrapped in spirituality. It is recognizing that empty containers eventually stop serving anyone. Type strength if you are reclaiming your energy. Not every person who left your life created damage, because some departures created space. Empty spaces feel painful before they become useful. The seasons that isolated you may have also introduced you to yourself. Solitude becomes different when it stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like reconnection. Archangel Michael says the future does not need another exhausted version of you trying to earn worth through endless effort. Worth existed before productivity entered the conversation. You are allowed to stop carrying identities built entirely around being useful to everyone else. Existing has value beyond output. Comment rise if you are choosing yourself again. One day you noticed that surviving difficult years changed your relationship with time itself. Some days felt endless while entire seasons disappeared without permission. Still, here you are, carrying stories that almost remained unfinished and continuing through moments that once looked impossible from the inside. Persistence often appears ordinary while living it and extraordinary only afterward. There are dreams inside you that adapted to disappointment by becoming smaller. They deserve another conversation. Silence has been trying to tell you something through repeated feelings, recurring thoughts, and moments where your heart quietly resisted certain directions. Inner wisdom often whispers because shouting would make it sound too much like fear. Type Amen if this message reached somewhere words rarely reach. You are not required to transform overnight. Lasting change usually happens slowly enough that you barely notice until old reactions stop appearing and unfamiliar peace starts feeling normal. Your story contains unfinished pages, unwritten chapters, and possibilities still waiting beneath accumulated fatigue. Nothing meaningful has expired simply because life became complicated. The quiet parts of your soul have waited patiently through every distraction, every disappointment, and every season where you forgot your own importance. They remain here now, unchanged in their willingness to welcome you back. And somewhere beyond the noise, beyond pressure, beyond old expectations and heavy memories, there is still a softer truth waiting without urgency. You survived enough to understand that strength was never the loudest part of you. Strength was always the voice that stayed when everything else became quiet. The morning after difficult seasons always feels unfamiliar because peace can seem suspicious when chaos has been normal for too long. Your hands still reach for old worries out of habit, your mind still prepares for storms that are no longer present, and your heart still waits for disappointment to interrupt gentle moments, even while healing quietly unfolds beneath the surface. There are memories you revisit not because you enjoy the pain, but because unresolved moments often return wearing different faces until they are acknowledged. Some experiences shaped your reflexes, your relationships, and the way you speak to yourself when nobody else is listening. The world taught you to measure your value through numbers, reactions, achievements, and how much of yourself you could give away without collapsing. Somewhere along that path, rest started feeling earned instead of necessary, and joy became something postponed for later versions of yourself. You spent years becoming who others needed while slowly forgetting to ask what your own spirit required to remain whole. Even now, there are pieces of yourself waiting patiently beneath responsibilities, still believing they will eventually be invited back into your life. Comment 444 if you are reconnecting with yourself. Some burdens became so familiar that you stopped calling them burdens and started calling them personality traits. Carrying everything alone looked responsible, staying quiet looked mature, and accepting less than you deserved looked normal because repetition can disguise almost anything. The truth arrives quietly when you finally notice how tired you became from performing strength instead of experiencing support. Constant resilience without restoration slowly turns survival into identity, and identities built around survival eventually become heavy to carry. My beloved child, there is no reward waiting at the finish line for abandoning yourself repeatedly. The soul does not grow stronger through endless neglect, because even strong roots require water, darkness, and time before new growth appears. Healing rarely asks for perfection. It asks for honesty first, because pretending you are fine only teaches pain to become quieter rather than smaller. Type peace if you are choosing honesty over pretending. There were seasons where your silence protected you, and there were seasons where silence slowly became another prison. Knowing the difference changes everything, because what once kept you safe may no longer serve who you are becoming. You have outlived old fears before, even the ones that once felt permanent. Many things that terrified you eventually became memories, lessons, or distant echoes that no longer control the direction of your days. Archangel Michael says growth often feels like losing certainty before discovering clarity. New chapters rarely announce themselves with confidence, because transformation usually begins while things still feel unfinished. Your future self is not asking you to become someone else entirely. That version simply hopes you stop abandoning yourself every time life becomes difficult. Comment light if you are ready for softer days. The heart remembers every moment it was chosen last, ignored, dismissed, or asked to shrink for comfort. Those memories sometimes create walls so quietly that you forget they exist until connection starts feeling dangerous. Still, your ability to care deeply survived. Your ability to hope survived. Even after disappointments stacked themselves across different years and different faces, something inside you kept reaching toward meaning. Not everyone will understand the battles that changed you, because invisible struggles rarely receive visible recognition. Strength built privately often remains unnoticed except by the person who carried it. My beloved child, your sensitivity was never the problem. The problem was believing you had to navigate everything without gentleness. Type 777 if you are allowing yourself to feel again. You have spent enough time waiting for external signs to confirm what your spirit already understands. Some decisions already revealed themselves through repeated exhaustion, repeated resistance, and repeated longing for something different. There are rooms you no longer fit inside emotionally, conversations you no longer enjoy pretending through, and versions of yourself you cannot comfortably return to. Outgrowing old spaces creates discomfort, because expansion requires leaving familiar things behind. Archangel Michael says release does not always look dramatic. Sometimes release happens quietly when you stop chasing what consistently drains you. Your peace deserves protection. Not because life should become perfect, but because peace creates enough space for you to remember who you are underneath pressure. Comment forward if you are moving differently now. There is something powerful about realizing you survived moments that once convinced you everything was ending. Looking back changes perspective, because pain that felt endless eventually became distance. You are still becoming, still unfolding, still discovering parts of yourself untouched by old disappointments. Human hearts remain capable of rebuilding even after carrying more than they were meant to hold. One day the weight you carry now will become evidence of what you moved through rather than proof of what still controls you. Until then, continue walking slowly if necessary, resting when needed, and trusting that progress exists even when it feels invisible. And when silence returns tonight, maybe it will feel different this time. Maybe it will finally sound less like emptiness and more like space being prepared for something new. Sometimes the hardest part of moving forward is accepting that the version of you who survived certain seasons cannot guide every season that comes after. Survival strategies protect during storms, but carrying them forever can make sunny days feel unfamiliar, and unfamiliar things often get mistaken for unsafe things. You learned how to expect less from people so disappointment would hurt less, but low expectations can quietly become walls that keep connection far away. Protection has its place, yet hearts built only for defense eventually forget how softness feels. There are moments your spirit tried speaking through restlessness, through the feeling that something important was missing even when everything looked acceptable from the outside. Outer stability does not always create inner peace, because peace usually begins when your actions finally match your truth. Many nights were spent replaying conversations, revisiting mistakes, and wondering whether different choices would have changed everything. The mind often searches backward for control when the future feels uncertain. Type Amen if you are releasing what no longer belongs to you. You were never meant to carry every disappointment forever. Some memories were lessons, some were redirections, and some simply belonged to chapters that already ended even if your emotions needed more time to catch up. The weight of constantly being strong can become invisible because people start expecting the version of you that always manages, always helps, always continues. Expectations grow quietly around capable people until exhaustion becomes routine. My beloved child, there is dignity in admitting you are tired. There is wisdom in recognizing limits before they become breaking points. Strength does not disappear when you pause. Mountains remain mountains even during winter. Comment 555 if you are choosing balance instead of burnout. There are dreams you placed on shelves because survival demanded your full attention. Some were postponed by fear, some by timing, and some by believing you needed permission to begin. Your spirit remembers those forgotten parts even when daily life becomes crowded with responsibilities. Longing often returns repeatedly because certain desires were never meant to disappear. Archangel Michael says your path does not need to look like anyone else's journey to hold meaning. Comparison steals attention from the quiet progress already unfolding inside your own story. You have changed more than you realize. The things you tolerate, the boundaries you build, the silence you protect, and the peace you now crave all reveal growth happening beneath the surface. Type light if you can feel yourself changing. There were seasons when loneliness sat beside you so often that it started feeling permanent. Yet loneliness and permanence are different things, even when they arrive holding similar emotions. The people who misunderstood your quiet moments only saw the outside of battles they never fought. Invisible struggles create invisible strength, and invisible strength still counts. You kept showing up during days when motivation disappeared. You kept moving during moments where standing still seemed easier. Those choices matter more than you know because consistency often builds futures while emotions simply pass through. My beloved child, the gentleness you offer others deserves a place in your own life too. Compassion becomes incomplete when it never reaches inward. Comment peace if you are learning self-kindness. Not every answer arrives quickly. Some clarity appears after distance, after rest, after enough time passes for emotions to stop speaking louder than truth. Your life has not been a straight line, and it was never supposed to be. Growth curves, pauses, repeats lessons, changes direction, and still moves forward. Archangel Michael says what feels slow may actually be steady. Steady things often last longer than rushed things. There is space ahead for joy that does not require explanation, for relationships that do not demand shrinking, and for moments where breathing deeply finally feels natural again. Type forward if you are still walking your path. The silence that once felt heavy may eventually become sacred. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you begin hearing yourself clearly again. And somewhere between who you were and who you are becoming, something beautiful continues unfolding quietly. Not loudly enough for the world to notice yet, but deeply enough for your soul to know.